Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And welcome to another episode in the series Dawah Ilallah, as we investigate and look at what Dawah actually is and how to call people to Islam. Now, we're not using our own understanding. We're not trying to reinvent how to do Dawah. We are simply looking at the recipe that is successful, the recipe that will succeed, inshallah. And that is the same recipe as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used. There are many people with many Dawah courses, but very few are based on what Allah has made permissible. And so we have to make sure that we confine ourselves to the Dawah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He was the best da'i ever. And those da'is that he made were the best da'is ever. And the second generation were the best da'is ever. And the third generation were the best da'is ever. But as the years went by, sometimes we forgot that they had the best system. And we started to interpret things our own way and think, well, this will work, instead of saying what actually will work. And so last week we looked at how the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ called people towards what? He called them towards salvation. He called them towards hope. There's a reason that people call. When somebody is shouting, he's calling you to come have a look at a product. He's shouting because he wants you to come into his shop. He's shouting because he's wanting to get rid of a product for some reason. In the same way, when we shout, because that's what Dawah is, we are calling, we're inviting, we are calling people to safety, we are calling people towards salvation. We are calling people to the grace of Allah, which the Christians think they own, but we actually find that not in Christianity, but we find it in Islam. 72 times it says in the Quran, what? Allah is oft-forgiving, most merciful. That is grace. Even though we have to do our part, it is the mercy and grace of Allah that we all rely on at the end of the day. That's why as Muslims, you'll never hear a Muslim say, oh, alhamdulillah, I'm going to paradise, I'm going to heaven. Oh, okay, I'm sure I've got my ticket. Here's my ticket, it's got my name on, I'm going to heaven when I die. Even if the man was a pious person and a good person, and his family confirms he was a good person, we still don't have the arrogance of saying that. Nor do we have the arrogance of saying, oh, that person definitely going to hell. For sure. He was such a bad guy. Because we don't have that right. It's all the grace and mercy of Allah. But we still have to do our part. But at the end of the day, it is totally up to Allah. So the scales can be like that, and the person can still go to the hellfire. The scales can be like that, and the person can still go to paradise. We do not know. It is Allah. There are one good deed can override everything. One bad deed can override everything. So it's a mercy of Allah. So we can't sit there and be, self-assured. Like the Christian will say, I am sure, I got my ticket. I paid for my ticket, I'm going. And that is a sad day that somebody would speak like that and try to force the hand of Allah into doing something. That can never happen, astaghfirullah, that we even try to say such a thing. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was a lamp to guide the people out of darkness and into the light. We spoke last time about a man maybe sitting on a boat, maybe when the Titanic is sinking, and he was on his lifeboat and he had a lamp and he shone it in the darkness. What did people do? Did they say, we'll catch the next boat, don't worry, we'll wait for the other ship to come? Or did they sit there freezing cold and say, we're going to make our way towards the lamp, towards the light? Of course they moved towards the light. They would have done anything. In fact, we know that they did anything from what we see in the history of the Titanic, is that they were drowning each other, pushing each other to try and get onto that lifeboat. So we should be the same way, trying to find our safety. And so the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is described as a lamp, as a guide that we need to follow. Is it his light that we are following? No. He is reflecting the light of Allah. He is taking no glory for himself. He's taking no credit for himself. He is simply reflecting. When you look in a mirror, you don't see yourself, you see a reflection of yourself. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ wasn't reflecting his own light. He's reflecting the light of Allah because he was human. He's not a God. This is where the Christians went wrong, and they thought that Jesus, the son of Mary, may Allah be pleased with him, was a God. But he wasn't. He was just reflecting the light. And because people didn't listen to what he was saying and thought they understood what he said, instead of listening to what he said, they interpreted everything that he said incorrectly. And they started to turning things they never meant into things that they think he said. We also said that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was a warner and a magnifier to the people. Why is he a warner and a magnifier? because he's warning people that yes, there is good news. Yes, there is salvation. Yes, Allah is forgiving and most merciful. But there is also a warning. There will come a day of accounting. Remember we spoke about how somebody will come and they come and audit your business once a year, and you hate that auditor when they come because you're scared they're going to find something wrong with your books. But how happy are you if you know your books are done correctly? Because you know you're going to get a nice big fat check from the government for having paid your taxes correctly. So it's a fearful day for those who are outside of Islam. It's a very, well, it should be, inshallah, if we've lived a righteous life and we've done what we're supposed to do, a happy day for the rest of us. Even though we don't act like that, we still live in fear. Every day we live in fear that perhaps, because we don't have that arrogance. Even though we know we might have done right, we still fear that we've done wrong, even if we've done the best. Imagine as someone who is a very, very good person. Imagine someone who's very well behaved, somebody who is a role model to the rest of us. The minimum amount of sins he will commit a day, even if he's a good man, is 5 sins a day. Now multiply that by the number of years that he's alive. Multiply that the number of days in every year, and you'll see how many. We have to still be fearful. We have to still never have that arrogance. So we saw that he is not only a warner of this day will come, but he was also a magnifier. What does magnifier do? It makes things look bigger than they actually are. And so we have to concentrate on things that are important. And we have to concentrate on things that we think, sometimes we have people in life that they major on the minors. They major on the minors. They major so much on the small things that they never do the big things that are important to do. So they're magnifying things in balance. In Islam, everything is in balance. You understand? Yes, it's important to pray, but not the whole day, so that you don't do any work. So it's that balance. Yes, it's important to fast, but not the whole year, because there's other things that you need to do. So it's keeping that balance. And then we looked at how the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was going to predict or warn people that on this day of judgment, everyone will be held accountable for what they've done, and how the Quran was given as a guide to humanity. How the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was to direct people's attention to the Quran. That he was telling people, if you want to get closer to Allah, how do you do that? You start to read the Quran. You don't go and get your own ideas, pull them out of fresh air, and say, oh, here we go, I've got a new system. And we spoke in episode 1 how that when people did that, they went into grave error. And they started to innovate things that because they didn't like what the text said, perhaps, or they trusted their own understanding. And we spoke that wisdom is very, very important in Islam. But once you've got that understanding, once that question has been answered, you don't go ask the same question again. So once you've got the confirmation of something, you don't keep going back to that, hoping that next year somehow it will have changed. Some other scholar will come up with another interpretation of it, and now it'll make that haram thing halal, or that halal thing haram, whatever suits your needs. No, those things will stay forever the same. So we have to gain wisdom. Once we gain that wisdom, we don't keep going asking that whole thing again. We don't rely on our own wisdom. Some people have misunderstood some of the scholars. Some of the scholars have said, do not trust your own wisdom, it's haram. And so people have said, oh, what? Islam says you must stay stupid. No, Islam wants you to be clever. But it wants you not to go back again and again and again to the same old thing, which you already have confirmation on, but you're trying to find a way out of that thing. You're trying to make a halal thing haram. That is not permissible in Islam. You must stick to what the Quran says. If it says it's no, it's no. Don't try and change it to a yes. We have many people today saying, but I live a good life. I try my hardest. It doesn't really matter that I pray 5 times a day. I don't have to. I'm a good guy. No, because that is the minimum that you've been asked to do. By the way, it's the lower grade pass mark. If you pray 5 times a day, it's not the higher grade pass mark. It's the lower grade pass mark. It's the minimum. Doesn't mean now you go pray 50 times a day. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. 5 times a day was the minimum because we humans are weak. The more we do, obviously, the better. So there's other ways that we can worship Allah as well. By raising our hand any time of the day, when we're sitting, when we're anyway just praying and speaking to Allah outside of those 5 times. So don't think that's the only time you ever communicate with Allah. There's other times that you must communicate with Allah. It's important that we connect to the source. If you take a airtime bundle and you buy a data bundle for your internet, and you buy only a half a gig, How long is that going to last you? Not long. Better to buy a whole gig. It's going to last longer. Nowadays, even 1 gig doesn't last very long. So you want to get a bigger bundle so that you stay connected longer, that the connection doesn't break. So you can get those important emails and those important messages and all other important things that you need. In the same way, we pray our 5 times, we're connected. But it's better to connect more. Talking about your real issues, your real problem. Many people, when they pray, they say, oh Allah, please help me. I've reverted to Islam, and I know it's haram for me to smoke, and I know it's haram for me to drink, but I want you to help me stop. And then they wonder why 4 or 5 years later, they still haven't been able to stop. Why hasn't it succeeded? Because they're lying. Instead of saying to Allah, Allah, I have no intention to stop. I love this cigarette so much. I love this alcohol so much. But I need you to help me because I have done it on my own and it doesn't work. And I have no intention to even try to stop because I'm weak. I'm a human. You know what will happen? Then you will see changes taking place because you've been honest. You can't lie to Allah. Do you think He's going to answer you when you're lying? When you say, oh, I don't want to smoke anymore. And meantime, all you're doing is thinking about having another cigarette. You're lying. So this is why we're saying the 5 times are important, but the rest of the times when you pour your heart out, it's when you talk about real things that are happening in your day-to-day life that you want Allah to help you with. That you throw yourself before the mercy seat to ask for mercy from Allah. That you beg Him for help. This is something, the remembrance of Allah. It's not just something that we say, it's something we do in our lives all the time. Well, it's time for us to take a quick break, and when we get back from the break, we'll continue, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is Abdul Rahim Green. Taqabbalallah minna wa minkum. May Allah accept it from us and from you.
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن أم على قلوب أقفالها.
Soothing verses, awakening contents.
Unlock your hearts. Let us start to reflect and interact with the glorious Quran through simple and interactive grammar exercises.
هو هم أنت أنتم أنا نحن.
Explore the secrets of success that exist in the blessed lines of the Holy Quran.
Using what you recite every day and night, learn 250 words that occur 55,000 times, or 70% words of the Quran. Let's understand the Quran.
Let's join Dr. Abdul Aziz Abdul Rahim in Let's Understand the Quran. Every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 5 p.m. Saudi Arabia and 6 p.m. UAE on Peace TV.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. We are continuing in the series of Dawah Ilallah, and we are just doing a short recap from the last 6 or 7 programs that we have, just to remind those latecomers that may have just arrived on the scene what is actually going on. And so we were talking about how the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was the best role model as a da'i, and how he showed us to be the best of people, a nation that would be separate, and a nation that would call people to the truth. A nation not of India, not a nation of America, not the nation of China, but the nation of Islam. Not that nation either. Not that nation of Islam, but the whole nation of Islam. The nation of Islam of all different races and all different colors and all different creeds and all different backgrounds, and tall and small and some so not so small. So all the different people of the world make up this nation. So this is who the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was sent to be a witness to. And we have the privilege, the greatest honor today, of being those same people with that honor as he had. Imagine that, to be trusted with the same honor that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was given at that time from Allah himself. And we have that same privilege to take the same message, the same guidance, the same deen to the people of this world. It's a great honor. It's something we should not look at as a burden, but as the greatest honor. I mean, you're being made a president. Imagine your government coming to you and knocking on your door one morning, and the man stands there and says, Nice to meet you, Mr. President, and calling you Mr. President, you would be, what? What happened to me? This is the same honor we've been given. We've been given the opportunity of being an ambassador, as being a spokesperson. So we have to be very, very cautious of how we're doing this. Are we people that are going to reflect the same light as he did, or we're going to try and take that for ourselves? And we have to be careful that we don't get arrogant when we become da'is. Remember that we are earth. And why are we earth? So we can ground ourselves. So we can step back on planet earth. They say some people are so heavenly minded that they know earthly good. And some people are too earthly minded, they know heavenly good. So you have to have a balance. So Islam, we are made of dirt to remind us that that's where we come from. We must be careful that we don't become arrogant and self-centered and think that we are too big for our boots, that we are more important than we actually are. We have to grind ourselves. And this is what we spoke about in the series, that once we've done things that may be in the limelight, maybe you've done a public lecture, maybe you debated some Christian scholar or a Hindu scholar or an atheist, after that, go do some menial work. Go volunteer to clean the gardens in the area that you live. Pick up rubbish. Maybe go clean a river. Maybe go and scrub out the bathrooms at the mosque, because it grounds you. It brings you, it not only grinds you, but it grounds you. It brings you back down and you go, I'm just a human being. If we look at the prophets, look what they had. Were they living in big palaces and big mansions and walking around with big fat titles? No. These were day-to-day people. Look at the abuse the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ went through. When I was in Mecca, I was amazed because they've got these nice tunnels now that go from the hotels to the Kaaba. Everything's easy. But I wanted to experience what it was like for them in those days. Try to take myself back 1,400 years, maybe 1,005, even 2,000 years into that period. And so instead of going through the tunnel, I walked over. I climbed the little rock spaces. And some of those houses that they've got there, you can imagine that's what the houses were like during the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Some of them are old, some of them are a few hundred years old, some maybe even be 1,000 years, I don't even know. But the pathways are narrow, and the houses are built on the pathway. And you can literally only walk single file through there. There is no alternative route. The alternative route will take you hours to go around, so you go over from one point to the next. It's tough. Those of you on the Hajj know exactly what I'm talking about. That rocky surface, it's very dangerous. 1 foothold in the wrong place, down you fall. As we see some of the innovators do when they go on Hajj, they want to go look for places that have got absolutely nothing to do with the Hajj. And what happens to them? They fall down and die, squashed, flat. Just 1 foot in the wrong place. But one of the most amazing things when I went through here, I saw these houses on the other side in the windows, and I remember the story. Remember how that woman used to throw things at the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ? Don't think it's a big, broad street. That would hit him. It would have hit him. He wouldn't have been able to escape from that. Wouldn't be able to dodge from that. Yet he went through there again and again. Why? He could have taken the long route. He could have gone in disguise. He could have covered himself up and pretended it wasn't him. He didn't. Because it was dawah. Persistence sometimes wears down resistance. And when I saw that, I thought, wow, what he did. What a great da'i. Today we have one little obstacle in the way of dawah. What do? Oh, give up. No. Some people say, I would love to go do dawah in America, or I'd like to go do dawah, but what happens if they hit me? What happens if they beat me up? What happens if I'm imprisoned? Wait until we get to that section in this course where we talk about the suffering that the early Muslims went through. Not just the early Muslims, the Muslims that we know today that are still going, but they keep going. They keep heading forward. So this is something that we have to remember when we talk about this course in dawah, is that we have to be persistent. We have to be consistent. Sometimes we build a dawah center. Maybe at home you see a dawah center being built. And they build this beautiful dawah center, and after a year, it's not successful. Hardly anybody came. And so they closed down the center, and you hear that the center is gone. What happened to persistence? Have you seen when the Christian missionaries succeed? They build a church. And for 5 years, maybe they get 5 people in the whole church for 5 years. And the priest is talking for 5 years and nothing happens. Maybe even 10 years. And then suddenly, the fruits of the labor take place. And that place has thousands of people. What happened? Persistence. The funding was there for that whole long term, however long it takes. Yet we as Muslims, we want instant results. Just add water, and then it will be cooked. We don't want to do the old school, the old way, where we have to persist. Remember, if you're going to open a Dawah center where you are, prepared for the long run. Have a budget that's going to last you for the long run. If you're going to be doing Dawah programs, have a budget that's not going to be a once-off. Okay, it's that time of year again. Once a year, we go to the college in the area or the university bus and we do a talk. And then we say, khalas, we've done it. Alhamdulillah, look at us. We got a Dawah. We did so much good Dawah this year. We went to that college again this year. That was twice that you've done it, once a year. No, no, no. This must be a constant thing. Every day there should be someone with a Dawah table. If you can't do it every day because of the rules and the regulations of the college or the university or the school, then do it once a month. But have something consistent and go on and plod. There's a medical school in Johannesburg in South Africa. They have a Dawah table that they put, where they gave them, they came, did a course with me, and they put up a Dawah table. It took them 3 years before they saw the benefits of one person. Now it happens on a weekly basis. 3 years they persisted having that table up, giving out literature, trying to get volunteers to help. And then they started to see the fruits of the labors. After 3 years only. Why did it take so long? Maybe Allah wants to see the quality of people. We don't know. Maybe it's that He wants to see how committed you actually are. Not just it's an instant success story. So at home, if you don't see success, perhaps you're talking to your friends or your family at work, and you're not seeing that instant result. You expect, well, Sheikh Ahmed Deedat used to give talks and people used to become Muslims. Zakir Naqs gives talks and they become Muslims. You give talks and they just become Muslims. How come when I do it doesn't happen? Because we had to do our hard work in the beginning. It took us years to get to the point where we saw any success taking place. The first 6 years that I did Islamic work, when I did Dawah, when I spoke, not a single human being accepted Islam. Not one. In 6 years, not even in my own family. My brother had better results. I had no results. 6 years, nobody. And then in the 7th year, it was like the floodgates opened. Why did it take so long? Because Allah has to prepare you. Doesn't mean that we can't have certain analogies that we understand in human terms when we speak about Allah. That Allah sees, that Allah hears, that Allah reaches out to us. Of course, these are terms, and they've been complicated to explain. That's why we leave it to scholars that are greater than I am. I don't claim to be a great understander of Islamic terminologies and theologies. I am a comparative religion person. So I'll make plenty of mistakes. I will make hundreds of mistakes in my lectures. And this is why I have to rely on Allah to guide me. And if I make mistakes, it's up to you to warn me and to send me those emails and say, brother, alhamdulillah, thank you for your talk, but maybe this or that needs to be refined. And that's how we all learn. We find big scholars, big muftis allow that to happen. If they are real people, they will allow that. Those people say, don't correct me, and they get all upset when you correct them. Then they need to still have a look at what part of their lives they've actually handed over to Allah. Remember last week, we spoke about this ring. And we said when we become Muslims, we have to have a ring that is put on us. And the ring is a bond slave ring. And it says that when you become a Muslim, you become a slave of Allah. Not by force, but by choice. A bond slave in the old days was given a ring. When he put it on, everyone in the community saw him, and they said, what a great master you have. And that slave in the community was treated better than the free people, better than the slaves, because he had that special ring on that identified his master as a great man. So when we have a ring on our lives as Muslims, they don't see you as a great man, or you as a great mufti, or you as a great teacher, or you as a great da'i. They say how marvelous, how fantastic Allah is. That's what they should see. If they're not seeing that, then you need to relook, and you need to do some analysis, and you need to do some homework and say, what have I allowed to happen? What have I still got to fix in my life? How much am I still in charge? How much am I still the driver of my life? Or have I given my life over to Allah and I'm sitting in the passenger seat? Most of us are not sitting in the passenger seat. We're still driving, but we tell everybody, oh, I'm a slave of Allah. We need to think. We need to become genuine. We need to become real. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Make sure you join us next week again when we go deeper into looking at Dawah Ilallah. So from all of us here in the audience and from myself, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
مشفق متعطف لا ينتهي بالحصر ما أعطاه رب رحيم مشفق